Hey there, this is Jenette Goldstein, and you're listening to Monsters, Madness, and Magic.
All right, folks, welcome to the Monsters, Madness, and Magic podcast. I'm your host, Justin, here with a quick word before we dive in. Now, in this episode, I chat with actor Jenette Goldstein about bad experiences on bad movies, the thrill of performing live, Near Dark, working with James Cameron, her new business, and more. As always, thank you all for listening out there. And if you'd like to help the show grow and you're listening on your podcasting platform of choice, please leave us a review. And if you happen to be watching the video on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe because it does help. Anyway, without further ado, here you go. All right, Jenette, take us back in time. You're a
Mm,
youngster.
mm,
Are you a book reader, fort builder, troublemaker, or all of the above?
all of the above.
That's my favorite answer.
Is it? Is
Yeah.
it?
What kind of trouble are we talking? Are you...
I would jump off. My brother and I would, in our neighborhood friends, we put a mattress. We were really into maybe we could fly, you know? And I remember we put a couple of mattresses down, and we jumped off like the roof of the garage, and yeah, really pissed my father off.
So book wise, did you have any authors or genre
Oh,
that you lean towards?
I love reading. I let me just try to think.
Okay.
I really liked Encyclopedia Brown, and then I liked oh my God, why can't I think of the name? The girl, oh Christ, who went around and took notes on everybody. What is, they made a movie out of it. She spied on all the neighbors and she had a book
Harriet the
and she wrote,
Spy?
yes, Harriet the
Mm.
Spy. Yes, that was, I love that one. And I decided I would be her, and I had a little book and I went around, I spied on people,
I love
the
that movie.
adults. Yeah, this is when I was little.
Hmm.
And then, yeah. And then my father, who I was raised by my dad, and he was a big historian and all things. So when I got older, he would say, read this book, History of Malcolm X. Read this book, this My Life, Trotsky. Read this book. He'd be like, so I read all these books on history and things like that when I was
Awesome.
in, I guess, middle school, I think, yeah.
So whereabouts did you grow
I grew up in Beverly Hills. It's definitely sunny. Yep.
up? So, would you say that anyone in your family, parents, or any relative was artistically, creatively inclined? Is that where your roots come from?
Mm, no, no. But they loved my mother and father loved the theater. And actually so did all of my grandparents. It was, the theater was a big thing in the Jewish, the Yiddish theater and the all of that. And so anybody who had any, my dad's family's from New York. If any money, they would scrape it together to go sit in the balcony and watch the theater and Shakespeare, and or go to, like, my dad would go to the it was the Thalia Theater on I think it's 96th Street. It was like the independent. He's from the Bronx, and you'd go down, you could see foreign films. It was this, incredible thing, and he'd go and watch for. So definitely a love of film and theater,
Awesome.
but not as nobody was an performer, an actor, or any way connected with the arts at all. They all were just, you know, shopkeepers, things like that.
So, when you think back to formative films and TV shows that you grew up on, what pops into your head?
Hmm. Film and TV
Hmm.
specifically. Theater, it was definitely Shakespeare. I loved it. And I mean, that was just like a big thing. Film and TV. Well, I watched a lot because I was a bit of a latchkey kid.
Mm.
It's funny, I remember seeing Night of the Living Dead. Kind of at a way too young. You're watching this thing and it's in black and white, and you think, oh my God, is this true? What's going on here? So I remember the end of the film was just devastating, devastating. And I got to meet the actors, not the lead actor, the black actor. He's sadly has passed away, but all the cast
Hmm.
at Comic Cons late. I just was such a fangirl. I couldn't believe it, and had them tell me the whole story about how did this film come together and how did they make it, and that ending. It was just so provocative and all. So that was great. And I mean, I'm remembering movies that. Oh, Mary Poppins. Good Lord. I made everyone on the block when they went to see it take me with them. I saw it so many times. So many times. I loved movies. I mean, movies. I mean, I just sort of became the person in when it was a great performance. It just their face kind of was on mine and the full belief. So I always wanted, it wasn't like I want to be up there on the screen or up. I just wanted to become a different person.
Mm, right.
That I could always imagine myself as a different person, and and living in a different house, and imagination, and when I finally figured out, oh, it's an actual job, because I didn't know how you do it, how you get there. When I kind of learned, oh, you could go to school, or and I was fortunate to be living in Beverly Hills. So around at the school, it's a very small community, just has one high school and four schools that feed into it. It's a city. I don't know if your listeners knows, but it's actually Los Angeles has all these little cities inside of the city. And there's no rhyme or reason really why one is a city. So the ones that are actual cities, have their own city hall and have their own school system. And anyway, this they had an incredible drama department. It was due to this amazing teacher at the time, but also, you met the children and the parents, and some of them were people you saw on TV, or huge stars, and they were people. And then there were some actors who were not famous, and you just kind of understand what the business was like,
Right.
in all its, it's just like any other business. Yeah, well, you kind of got an inside look to, well, you could be fabulous and just never be famous, or you could be this really famous, like, I remember Mission Impossible. I loved Mission Impossible. And the Landows, their two daughters were in my class, and I just knew their, mom and dad. And I knew that the two of them were on this show. And my dad said, oh, this is just really kind of a cheeseball thing. They, especially Martin Landau's this famous theater actor who'd been working forever, and, his wife too. And it was just a fluke. They, like, sure, let's do this piece of whatever. And then what I
Yeah.
mean? Just to kind of, I learned the sort of vicissitudes and, luck and all of that, or how stuff just doesn't work out. And you just, it's a job. So I was very fortunate, because, I didn't have any actors in my family. But then I got to know people's parents who were working actors. And then I could see sort of what the life was like.
Are you talking about Juliet Landau? You went to school with her?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
And
love
Susie.
Juliet. She's great.
Juliet, actually, yes, Juliet was younger, and then Susie was in my grade. Susie
Oh,
Landau.
okay. Okay.
I think she's still, she's a producer,
Hmm.
along with her mother, Barbara, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
Uh-huh.
Juliet and I are
Landau's.
kind of pen pals. I
Oh,
talked
get
to her a
out.
couple days ago. It's funny.
Oh, get out. Okay,
Hmm.
well, say Jenette Goldstein says
I
hi.
will. I will.
I think her mom was our, like, Girl Scout leader at one point or something.
Wow. Crazy.
People tell you that. I mean, it was just like there were some crazy. Yeah, Beverly Hills was quite an interesting place to grow up in, for good and bad. It's a strange place.
I mean, just listening to you talk, it seems like, you're more of a theater person.
Mhm.
Do you still attend the theater? Do you perform on stage at all?
I haven't for a long time, and I'm definitely, I haven't done any acting. I left the business, or whatever. 15 years ago, I started a business to supplement my income, or just trying to figure out what I was going to do, and then, it. became moderately successful, and all my attention went to that. So, but just now I am starting to kind of dip my toe in, but more like thinking, what do I want to do? Who do I want to do it with? But definitely theater. I just love the theater. So
So, what records are spinning around the house when you were growing up?
records. I love your question. I love it. It's funny. My parents didn't have any records, which was weird. I think it was my dad was a big jazz aficionado, and I think his mother threw out all his record or something. I don't know. But so they didn't play music, but I did. Well, when I was little, we had I had this sampler that they got me. Maybe it was the Columbia record. You get a little bit of every
Mm-hmm.
every period. I used to love listening to that. And then I got the KHJ, which was another sampler. That was the big station. And it had, Mark and the Mysterians, and it had Mark Bolan, it had all these little um, samplers. And then I got very, I would go to the library and I'd get out musical comedies. My dad would sort of suggest which ones to get. He goes, Three Penny Opera, Brecht, it was like, I know, I think about it now, and my teachers just were like, oh my God, this girl. But then I got really into it as a teenager. I saw Bruce Springsteen at his first concert so I had a boyfriend who was really into music, and when I was 16, I went to see Bruce Springsteen right when he got the Born to Run tour on the cover. And then I got into Patti Smith and punk rock and all of that, English and all that, really heavily into punk rock. And I was actually in a punk rock band for like 30 seconds
Wow.
in college.
Did you play an instrument?
No, I was the singer
Oh,
until the guitar player decided that he's gonna sing, and they don't need a vocalist. And then so
that's how it
but I
goes.
yeah but I have friends with the guys, all our lives. The band is no longer together, needless to say.
Jeanette, that's something I like to ask everyone, and you can take it whichever direction you want to go with it. What
Sure.
scared you as a kid?
Hmm. Well, I'll tell you what. Um, I my mother got very sick when I had just turned 8 years old. So, and it was she actually survived. She's the only survivor of it was just a crazy virus she caught. You know, Afternoon, she had a cold, takes a nap, just doesn't wake up.
Wow.
Like, that's about the scariest thing that can happen to a child. It's
Yeah.
just like a fairy tale, like that sort of thing. And my brother was sick, and my father, was this young, intern, and so anyway, she survived and was disabled, and all that. That's why I say that my father raised me. Um, However, so what I would do, so the scary thing for me, that was kind of the scariest thing. It was like, I don't know if it was the scare, it was kind of knowing like, oh shit, you know, you could die anybody could die at any time.
Yeah.
So I kind of my brother became more fearful and I became more fearless. It was very interesting, sort of psychological. And we were very close. So I would take care of him. He would make sure everything could be perfect. And I'd be like, who the hell fuck cares? I'm going to just jump off this roof,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So things absolutely scared me, but I would always just kind of go, okay, I'm going to do it. And then I would just jump. I mean, like jumping off a high dive platform, which was, I would do these things to sort of prove to myself that I wasn't afraid. So I don't know if that's a scary. So, yeah, I think I was always saying that when you mentioned movies, like one movie that was, or at least I remember it was a Planet of the Apes. Uh, so that came out in '68. And that was right when my mother was, in a coma, whatever. And I was, it's hard to remember, but I remember I was taken over to, a friend's house so he could the father could take care of us, and my father had to work, and he took us out to a movie thinking it'd be great. He said Planet of the Apes. He's thinking it's like, maybe it's a fun movie with monkey. I don't know what he was thinking. However, the end of that movie, I mean, it was kind of bloody in the shooting and all of that sort of stuff, but to me, what really like scarred me from that movie forever was the end.
Mm.
And I guess
Everybody's
maybe that's
gone.
kind of goes, yeah, that everything you do has no purpose, or is that what it was? Oh my God, it's kind of the same as Night of the Living Dead. It's the same idea. And I just remember that was something at that point. That's pretty depressing, isn't
There's
it?
a lot of existential stuff going on, it seems like. But I was,
So yeah, so anyway, that was, yeah,
were
that was me, so.
you said when your mom got sick and you and your brother kind of went separate directions mentally, were you aware of that at the time? Do you remember like being scared to do things and then now you're miss, I'm going to jump off the high rise?
No, I was always, as far as I can remember myself before that time, I was always a tomboy.
Okay.
Always, yeah. And I was, my my mom was really adventurous. I don't have a huge memory of her before that time, but talking, with her family and her friends. I mean, she's the only girl who like went to college for a bit and got out of the South. And she was always an advent, and she marries this guy and moves across. So she was always, and so yeah, no. I mean, I was raised even before that time to be a really kind of you know, speak up.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed. I guess I've learned now, but like the women, and my grandmother was a real mouthy broad, and I didn't really know this
Yeah.
idea of quiet women. I didn't, and I wasn't told to like, Jenette, or I mean, I was yelled at, but it wasn't like humiliated for doing it. It was like, wow, you really punched that guy? Well, you shouldn't have. But I used to punch. I used to punch a lot of people when I got angry. So yeah, no, still me in there.
So your very first time on stage as a performer, how did that go? Did it go all smoothly?
What would be my first time on stage? Oh, actually, I'm trying to remember because not really. So I was told, it's, oh my God, I don't know if this is the first time. It was pretty early. There was a Hanukkah. It was at the park, and it was a performance. I guess it was a holiday performance, Christmas and Hanukkah. And I remember I was in this like some Dutch thing or whatever. But then I remember I was one of the candles, and I think I came out the wrong side. So it was lopsided. There weren't 4 and 4. And then I just remember really seriously walking as if no one could see me to my correct side. So there you go. I was told by my father. I was like 3 that was my premiere. My stage debut.
So when you were on stage, what are some of your favorite roles that you played?
Oh God. I'm just trying to think. Like in high school, I used to love the theater department was everything to me. And I loved playing. I rarely have gotten to do comedy. Maybe because whatever, I always so when I get a chance, I always remember that. I did Hetty LaRue and How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. I don't know if you know this
I'm not familiar
musical.
with that one.
Oh my God, it's fabulous. And the movie is great. It's really subversive, and it's a funny really, it's a comedy role. And let me see, on stage, okay, when I was an actual real actor, I was going to say a paid actress, but you don't get paid much for. Oh my God, I laugh at that. I was in a production of After the Fall, by Henry Miller. I love that. Great production in Los Angeles at the Fountain Theater, and there was a play that I did also in Los Angeles called Frozen, not the Disney musical. It's about a child killer, anything but the Disney musical. But I love that play. Was really an interesting play. I remember reading about it in the New Yorker. It was Susie Kurtz had as a three-hander, and she had played the role. It's there's three parts. It's the murderer, the child murderer, the mother of one of his victims, and then a psychologist who studies, the brains of child murderers. And I remember reading about this production when it was on Broadway and just going, wow, that sounds like an amazing play, which I will never see because I had, a daughter then. And then I end up playing the role of the mother of the murder. So it was an interesting, but I really liked that role in that production. So
A term that's kind of thrown out there and kind of muddled these days, I think, is method acting.
mhm.
Uh, Speaking with actors over the years, it just seems like to me each actor has their own specified method that works for them. What's yours?
Mine is whatever works. What whatever. I mean, I was trained. I my training was was varied. I trained in New York at the Circle in the Square Theater, which was an eclectic group of teachers. It was not one method like I didn't go to Juilliard. Juilliard would have their method and neighborhood playhouse. Um, Circle in the Square was very different. It caused quite a lot of rancor between the faculty, though, as we learned, where they would take the head of Juilliard and acting, and he would teach a section, and then they would take another one from Williamsburg, and he would teach a second section, and and then oh my God, this very famous method teacher, Terry Hayden. Oh my God, she had worked with Strasberg. I don't even know if she'd met Stanislavski. She was this old lady. She was like a god to the method people. And so I got her. You could see how much I rub against when people want you to do it one way. And then I went, after spending 2 years there, I went to London and I trained. I did a 1 year at an English acting school. It's one of the oldest ones. It's no longer there. And whole, from their end, where they more focus on the outside in, if you just want to do a cliche idea of what
Yeah.
American versus British. So I got a lot of tools in my toolbox.
That's the best way to
And
be.
yeah, because that's how I look at it. I'm a crafts person, and you want the actual thing to work for the person who's, if I'm making a chair and you want them to sit on the chair, and not everybody's going to like it, but this is, so
Have you ever done any teaching yourself?
yeah, I have done teaching. And when I was in Los Angeles, when I came back to Los Angeles from London, I taught kids like at this youth center. I really enjoyed working with young teenagers,
Mm.
11, 12, 13, that age, and that. And so I worked at I had an acting not school, but program. I taught at a local youth center, and then I did a senior play with at the American Academy of Dramatic Art, I believe. I taught there for a little bit. Taught it at local high school in East LA for a little bit. Since I never finished college, I don't have a degree. I never worked as a drama teacher in a school. I always had to be hired as on some special contract, God
Yeah.
forbid they should hire a professional,
Yeah, like what
someone
do you
without
know,
a
right? It's like
yeah. So, but no, yeah, I did a lot. I did a lot of but I did not teach actors that came, professionals that came, out to be professionals. I pretty much stuck with youth
Mm.
because it
So
was so formative to me. when I found out, you could do it in high school and all this stuff, that I wanted to do that.
I feel like that's when you can make the biggest impact on somebody is when they're young anyway, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what would you say is the most common pitfall you see the young actors fall into?
Well, it's funny because when I went to high school, and I trained under this man named John Ingle. A lot of people will talk about him. And my mother had gotten me, my parents had gotten me this book. They went to New York, and she went to a bookstore. And when I said I was interested in acting, she saw a book that said "Respect for Acting" by this person, Uta Hagen. I don't know if you know who that
I've
is
heard the
in that book.
name, but I'm
It is
not familiar. Yeah.
she just said, "Oh, honey, here's, it says acting. Maybe this will be interesting." And it was so good. I look at it now, and I'm like, oh God, I was so fortunate like I got to look at that. And then this teacher. So what I'm saying is that everything how I was taught, when I finally got to the professional acting school in New York, with, what I noticed is a lot of the young people, so much had to be erased. They were in drama departments, and they were the stars of their thing. And however they were taught, it was very performative. It was very, let's put on a show. It was, and they had to be like, no, you have to forget everything you learned in high school. And I didn't. It was like, oh wow, I lucked out, because I would have done what the teacher. I somehow, the people that I admired, and books I read, and the teachers that I had, seemed to work, at least for the teachers I came in contact with during my professional training.
Hmm. So how did the transition from stage to screen eventually happen for you?
Oh God. I say that just because uh I find screen acting really hard. I was not trained at all. Had no intention. I mean, obviously I knew about TV and film because I was from Los Angeles. And I think there was one point somebody saw me in a play, some agent or some producer or something, and they had me come down to CBS. And I don't know, did I read? So I don't know what it was, but it didn't matter to me, because I was focused on, I'm going to go to New York to be a stage actor. I was going to New York. That was, and I did have one friend who stayed in LA and was on TV and all that, but that was just a whole other, I didn't understand it. And, kind of in the late 70s, 80s, TV was really sitcom. There was a real big divide, you know. So no, I fell into getting this audition for this film called Aliens when I was in England. I was looking at what plays are, auditions for plays. It's where you look for, what plays, and I was doing a lot of little plays. And this was a film, and they specifically wanted Americans with a British equity card.
Hmm.
And so I was like, oh, I'm an American. God, just Americans? You never see that. You never, it's really hard to work in England if you're not English. Obviously, that makes sense. And I was like, oh, cool, okay. And I sent my resume and my headshot in. I mean, it wasn't much of a resume. And then got a meeting, asked to come down and to his office, and there was this young woman there, and there was a poster of the Terminator behind her, and I just seen that the other night, and I was like, oh, that is the coolest movie. I just saw that. It's so good. She goes, yeah, that's ours. And I was like, that's ours. I couldn't figure out. I was trying to figure out I didn't know what that meant, because she was so young. So I was like, oh, okay. And then, yeah, they just gave me things to read. And then, I met James Cameron. They had me keep coming back and reading different roles, kind of like Hudson, and improvising.
Mm-hmm.
And he was holding, a it's way before you could hold a handheld, but he had something in his hands, and we talked a lot. Because I didn't read and then they gave me I didn't have an agent. So yeah, no age. Like I'm saying, this was like, I was just looking through the paper, that
Yeah.
kind of actor's paper that's at the back. It has, this little theater's doing this in a church basement, come on. I guess it was about 3 auditions, and we talked a lot about the character. He wanted to know, the gang, and I just talked about, I grew up in LA, and I knew those girls at Echo Park at that time, and all this sort of stuff, and you know, um, and then they just kind of went. He just went, "Here's the script."
Hmm.
We don't know what part we're going to give you, but we want you in the movie, so go home and read it. And then they're like, "Do you have an agent?" I'm like, "No." Like, what? Oh, do you want? It was like, "Do you want us to find you an?" Yeah, And I just kind of went home and told my husband, like, "Oh my God, I'm in a movie. This is what?" Um. So after getting it, and then coming to the set, it was terrifying because I didn't know what to do. I mean, I knew when they say action, you start the scene and all of that. I still have a hard time figuring out, where your eye line goes. And I mean, Bill, it was the other guys. It was Bill Paxton, God love him, and Mark Ralston, Rico, all the guys that were with me. They were just like, I mean, I think Danny Cash, also another actor, was all from the stage. He had never been, and it was just Cameron trusted you. It was like, you're an actor and you're this, and the other guys would just help us, where you go and what you do. And this is where your eye line is. And this is how they cut it together. And,
So you said earlier that you find screen acting hard. Why is that?
there's just so much technical stuff to concentrate on, I mean, and yeah, just, and all the stopping and starting and stopping and starting and so many people around, the concentration and being, the whole thing with acting is you're trying to, you want to concentrate and suspend your belief and not think about, oh no, I'm doing it bad, or what is this person thinking of, I mean, there's like, you're in the zone. And so when you're in a play, the moment before going on, it's terrifying. But once you're like there,
Hmm.
you're there. Whereas film and, with film, you're stopped. So it's a whole other skill to be able to keep that. And then, someone comes up and they're like fooling with, oh no, hold on, 1 second. The curl is okay. And then but it's technique you learn. The cigarette has to match. So make sure they come up. Oh, you grabbed it with last time with the line you were on. So that was a long process of learning that. It's just a whole other skill set. And then, but at the end, nobody cares. You have to be the person, and that's at the end. You go, okay, well, they liked it. That worked, or hopefully it did. Hopefully, because it's you cannot repeat it next night and the next show. That part fucked me up. Was like, so you're so used to going home from the performance and go, okay, well, that performance next show, I'm gonna try that and that work.
Right.
And then, but the real, oh no, it's over, it's gone. That's, they can choose the takes, but there's no more, you know
Yeah.
next week's performance, you're gonna improve upon it. So yeah.
When you were more doing theater, was stage fright a
Hmm.
problem for you? Did you ever have that issue?
The only stage fright I had was always the moment. It's the moment you go on. I mean, it's like jumping out of an airplane.
Hmm.
You are so prepared, and that's one of the things with theater. You are prepared. Or I mean, I took over a role once. Oh my God, with 2 weeks, and it was a 2.5 hour. Oh my God, I was put in. It was a show called Tamara. It's where you follow the actors around. And it ran for a long time in LA. And so each character has their own 2.5 hour play
Wow.
because you just keep going. So, and it was a long running show. I think Angelica Houston was in it for a while. It was just one of these shows that ran like, it's as near as to Broadway to LA had at that point. And, actors would leave and you'd be put in with, 2 weeks, which is the usual thing for a long running show, not by the director, but I was so excited to get this role. And, I just thought, how am I going to memorize this? Oh my God, in 2 weeks. And just anyway, but usually I'm saying you are prepared, but that moment you come in is quite like, but No, I've the stage fright of not being able to actually work. I've heard about that, where
Mm.
it's just so no.
So you find the audience more comforting than anything, or you feed off of them.
Yes, you definitely do.
Mm.
You definitely do.
And
You can feel, I mean, it's obviously with a comedy, but there's a real sense, of live theater that you can't, it's very hard to match.
before that first meeting with Cameron, you said you had watched Terminator the night before.
Yeah, it was, yeah, pretty much. I watched it at this theater. I liked it. I went by myself. I forgot what my husband was doing. I liked it so much. Went back the next night with him because I wanted him to see it.
Yeah. Not, were you aware of the first Alien at all?
Oh yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
saw you saw it to that up to that point?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember it's funny. I saw it with my father and my brother. I guess when was it? Did it come out in 78, possibly? Maybe I was five. Anyway, and the interesting thing is we saw it at the same theater where the premiere for Aliens was shown in Westwood. So yeah, no, I love that movie. It was really struck me there the his depiction of the future, that it wasn't clean and shiny, and it's like, yeah, of course it's things don't work, and there's always this working schlub doing the worst job ever, and I'm like, of course, that we still have things here from the 1930s, and we're not flying around in space, and
Yeah.
I just thought I really noticed that. And then of course the whole film, when the thing came out of her, you know, when it came out of his chest, and yeah, it was a great movie. Loved it, loved it.
So just curious, like with Near Dark, was it just a coincidence that you, Bill, and Lance all got back together and worked on that, or was something else going
Well,
on?
well, not really coincidence. It was, Catherine was friends working with James Cameron, and so she had thought this would kind of be cool, and actually found me because I wasn't. Did I have an agent then, or I wasn't listed with SAG? I don't think I was listed, but he had my parents' phone number, so I got a
Okay.
call at home from this script being sent to me, and this woman on the phone, and I was trying to figure out, how do you know me from like high school? Why would you be sending, because you know and then she said, oh no, I'm a friend, James Cameron gave me your phone number, hope you don't mind me calling you, and all. But we the crazy thing was, so you read this script, and it's so beautifully written, but if you try to explain it to someone, it was like, oh, it's this vampire west. You sound like kind of like a little crazy to say that it's actually good.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound so. It was funny. Bill, Lance, and I were, knocking around town at that point, and we, see each other at, dinner or something, and we'd always go like, oh, hey, what are you reading for? And what are you reading? Oh, I'm reading for this, and blah, blah, blah. And then we hadn't mentioned it to each other because the same thing. It was like, oh, nobody's going to believe that this is really good until one of us mentioned, oh, there's this kind of good vampire. I'm like, wait a second, I'm reading. I'm also me too. So that was
Wow.
funny. That surprised us. We couldn't believe it. And then we went in and read together and did all that. And then it was like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. And Catherine's so brilliant.
Hmm.
That was just so great.
So do you think that that chemistry that you guys had working together already helped with some of the
Oh
success of Near
yeah.
Dark?
Oh yeah. I mean, we had known each other for like this Aliens was 12 weeks. And then we had when I came back to LA, I would hang out with Belle and Lance. This is so fucking crazy, and all of that. And yes, absolutely. And it was great to play different roles, but and then, it was God, I don't know how many weeks of nights. Oh my God, with them. So so the very end, the very last shot of the shoot was actually the one interior on a set, the one set where we were inside the minivan, not the minivan, what's it called? The Winnebago.
Hmm.
Um, which is kind of one of the first time you see us, but we'd already just, oh my God, had spent every night with each other in this in truck stops, and we were sitting, so we're in this cramped space with each other. And I remember You know, Josh Joshua Miller, who played my son, this little
Yeah.
boy, remember he turned 12 or 13 on the set anyway. But Bill was so tired and we were all really tired of each other at a point. And I remember Josh was like, he had that beach ball that was inside, and between takes he was like hitting it and hitting it and hitting it, and then Bill just grabs that. God damn it! With just fucking stuff, he's like yelling at this poor kid. He's like, I am so. I was like, this is perfect. This is so perfect. For a family it's an eternal family vacation that's lasting for eternity. What a
Yeah.
nightmare. What a fucking nightmare. You really had that sense. Oh, maybe this isn't so good.
That's a great movie. It's just funny. It's coincidental. Yesterday I was interviewing Chris Sarandon, sorry,
Ah,
yeah, who did Fright Night, and we just started talking about how horror movies in the '80s were kind of stigmatized, and
mm,
then Fright Night, Near Dark, and The Lost Boys, all these three great vampire movies come out back to back to back, and now it's not that way, and you can make money at the cinema releasing a horror movie, and those movies had a lot to do with taking things a more serious route, I think.
yeah, there wasn't the kind of respect for genre.
Right.
A genre film was considered, well, that goes to the grindhouse theater and that kind. And I kind of, I when people ask about, it and why it didn't get that good of a release and why people didn't come to see it, I say, this was before Tarantino.
Yeah.
And pretty much an independent film meant there were like two types. It was like a French, or mumblecore, that kind of like intellectual thing, or it was a real, shoot 'em up, blood, and this was this combination of the two, which Tar- you know the and he loved film and he loved those kind of films, and so he brought it up and out
Yeah.
into the, yeah. So
Yeah, I didn't even yeah, they make the Tarantino. There's the catalyst right there.
that kind
Tarantino.
of opened it, but this
Yeah.
was before where people weren't
Yeah.
just didn't understand, especially marketing. They didn't who's this audience? What do we put on the poster? I mean, that was the thing when I saw that poster at the meeting when we went to sort of just, I don't know, go to wherever they were when they were going to release, and they said, oh, they're going to show us the poster, cool. And Bill's there, Paxton, and there's that poster with his bloody, this just huge head of his head with blood, that one little shot. Like there's no blood in this film except for that one shot. And Jill and I had just choked because he had always wanted to get his face on. He goes, God damn it, I never get my face. You know what I mean? I'm always playing the second. And I remember when we got the Mad magazine came out with, the thing. So Bill and I went down to this newsstand right next to Canner's and like got the copies, and we went and we sat there, we're opening up and trying to find our, how we were drawn, which is the coolest thing. And he's like, what? I'm a chicken? Like they didn't draw his face, they draw it as a chicken head. It was like, it's like, God, I would never get a break. So when I saw this poster, I laughed because I thought it was a joke. I thought he had done it as a joke because he's never on. And then they're like, no, this is actually how we're going to market it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. All right. So, you know, it was one of those, the Canadian poster was different. So I always felt like, the kids who wanted to see blood and all this, they went, oh, cool. And then they probably were just like, this is boring. And then the actual audience that might have appreciated it
Right.
at that time were like, I want to see the slasher film.
Hmm.
So it kind of it was, anyway.
It found its audience. It just
Oh,
took some.
yeah,
It definitely found its
it,
audience.
it definitely, my husband actually was a manager in at the Clay Theaters in San Francisco, and he said it was on a bill, like a triple bill with those theaters, the sticky triple bill with I forget some horrible
Yeah.
thing, because he was one of the few people who actually saw it in its original release. I was like,
Wow.
yeah, you're kidding me. He said, yeah, and then it was gone the next weekend.
Yeah. So when it comes to Terminator 2, was it just as simple as James Cameron giving you the call and saying, "Hey, Jeanette, let's do it again," or?
Yep. Amazing. Yeah, no, I mean that's kind of incredible. But yeah, he'd been, checking in on me, like how's it going in LA? Because he found me in England. I was living there, and then I decided to come on over, and how are things, had auditions and different things. And I was always complaining, that was the whole thing was, here he cast me so far away from type, but all my auditions, it was, a big shoot 'em up girl. And they're like, wait a second, you're short. They're like, yeah, it's a camera, it's film, dude, and I'd had a kid, and he knew me with my little boy. He said, "Oh, you're the nicest. You never get to audition for mom roles?" Or I was like, "No, I'm always killing someone, or well, it's fine. Nobody. I'm not anyone's mom. Obviously, it seems like." And so then when he called, he said, "Oh, I got you a mom role." I was like, "Oh, thank you." And then it's like this horrible mother. It's great, great role, great role. So,
Perfect
but
mom
I
role
did
for you.
I did play another good mom in uh Titanic. Of course,
Yeah,
I
great
killed my
mom.
kids,
Yeah,
killed my kid. Yeah. I
yeah.
killed my husband, I killed myself, and then I killed my kids. So there you go. There
So
is a
that,
through line in my career.
yeah, that scene in Terminator, where you're stabbing your husband through the eye.
Yeah.
Is there, when you're doing it, was there a prop indicator that you were using, or were you just having to imagine your hand turning into the sword?
Well, it was both. It was both. I mean, there was a large practical that I had made. Like I went down to North Hollywood to the guys down there at Stan Winston, and stuck my hand in a thing of goop, and they made
Okay.
a thing on my hand, and then they painted on all like the little flesh and little freckles on my hand, and then they turned it into they made a thing. And
Wow.
so there were guys. I think there's a great picture of John. I forget John's last name. He's was Stan wearing this like black hood, and I'm just kind of, and Xander Berkeley, who played my husband, just standing there, because part of it was them hiding behind me, and sticking, poor Xander, had to have that in his mouth, and lean back. I'm just standing there. They're crouching and doing that. But then there was the other part that I had to do for the technology, which they explained to me, but I'm like, okay, whatever, it's gonna melt, no one had ever. Okay. So that part was just like, move your eyes this way, move your shoulder this way, look up, look down, pretend you're seeing what's
Mm.
written there, and
It was like
that.
motion
So
capture.
well, no, it wasn't motion capture. No, I mean,
Okay.
I've never done motion capture, but no, it was, they needed, however they melded, the practical into the thing. They
Okay.
had to have, the actor, my eye line, be where it would fit. I don't know. It's just kind of just pretending, and
Yeah.
going, okay, it's up to you guys. I'm handing it off. I hope to God I'm looking at the right, what I'm looking at is
Right.
correct.
Just
Just
as
like,
a
when
yeah.
like they do an explosion out, went out of a thing in space, and then you have the AD going, and boom, that's what you get, and then you have to see a nuclear bomb go off. So it's just acting,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
pretending. Yeah.
So you just mentioned Titanic. You have one of the most memorable scenes in that movie. Did you know when you're reading the script? Did you realize I probably have the saddest scene in this sad movie?
You know, I wasn't, I didn't realize the effect of that one scene, but I did know, when I was reading it, because Cameron said, okay, the role of the granddaughter's already cast. I have the thoughts, where I'd like you to read for, but take a look at it. And then I was reading, and I was like, ooh, that's what I want. That is an integral, and it's a good scene. That's a good story point. And yeah, in the script, my only lines in the script in those three scenes was the second scene, the scene when we're caught down behind the gate and talking to the kid. And the last scene, there were no lines. It just said, she puts them to bed.
Mm.
Shot of the Irish mommy putting her children to bed. And I'd asked Jim, what do you want to me to say a bedtime story or sing, or is there something he said, what just bring me what you, so I went to the Irish, there was all these Irish dancers and musicians in the scene there to talk to them if they knew certain songs, and they like came to me and said, "Oh, you have to tell this story. I'm gonna." And they wrote the whole thing out for me, and explained what it meant and how it just was. You're told
Mm-hmm.
this, and it's so integral to the experience, and it's perfect. And I was like, "This is perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you." And so I told him I was going to do this, and he's like, "Great, great, do it."
It was
So
perfect.
yeah, yeah.
My wife's she's really not a movie person at all. She doesn't keep up with, she likes movies, but she doesn't know, I know the cinematographer and the actors. She
Hmm.
has no idea. So I was like, I'm recording with Jenette Goldstein today. And she's like, what has she been in? I'm like, Aliens or Terminator 2. Nothing. She has no idea. She's
Hmm.
never seen those movies. And I said, "Oh, but Titanic. You remember the Irish mom?" And she was like, she almost started crying. She was like, "Oh God."
I
She-
know, isn't it? Yeah, I get that reaction too. People like, which one? And then it's like one, oh yeah, like, oh my God, men like, oh, I lost it at that point. I had kept it together, and yeah, no, yeah, it was quite the opportunity. Great little role there, and I love being able to be a integral part of the story,
Mm,
because you know that's what's important, is that you fit into that, the story itself is successful, not just your performance. I mean, it is good to have a good performance in a terrible movie, but I try to I try to avoid terrible movies. I was actually in a horrible film. Do you happen I always quiz people if they knew which
a terrible film.
so where I had quite a large
What
role.
year?
It
Ballpark.
was 90, I'm trying to go by the ages of my children. 96 it came out. Here's it. It was Cindy Crawford's first and last film role.
I think you've got me. You got me
Oh, see
stumped.
that's like one of those things. It's called Fair Game. It's with William Baldwin and Cindy Crawford, and it's an action film, and it takes place in Miami. And as the years have gone by, it's gotten better in its badness, where it's like it's not as good bad as like Showgirls, but no, I mean, nothing will top that. However, it is a really, you're just like, oh my God. I mean, it was just all kinds of bad, from just a terrible script and a terrible director, and just,
Ugh.
you know, Cindy Crawford's a lovely, lovely person, and she was hardworking, but she was, which I didn't know. I wasn't sure. I was like, oh God, maybe she's going to be a diva, and she wasn't at all. She was lovely, but oof, it was.
So not just a bad movie, but like just a bad experience all around for you, huh?
It, unfortunately, because the director was such a horrible. I mean, this is a rare experience I find, when there's someone who's like that, and where the entire crew just hates him, and all the actors. It's just a the first time I met him, in Miami, and he no longer is in the business. But he was rude to a waiter. We're getting together with the other character actors, and someone's like really rude to a waiter, and you're just like,
That's never a good
ugh,
sign.
no, and it was one. I mean, it was a great job. I got to be in Miami for 3 months with my kid and stay at the Biltmore. I mean, just, and a lot of money. It was one of those kind of jobs you do for the money and all of that. However, you don't want to look like an idiot. And one of the things what I wanted to do, it was the two other bad guys with me, was Stephen Burkoff, who's this amazing playwright. And he's in English. He's an actor, but he's also this amazing playwright, and this other Polish actor who I'd see really good. Um, And I just thought, okay, it's really sketched out. There's nothing there for these, why they're there, and got these, will do something, make it, figure shit out. And we were all, the three of us were like, okay, and the director wanted no part of our and then boy did it go, whoa. Yeah, it was bad. And then he was fired at one point, and then they had to reshoot, and because nobody, the test off audience didn't know what was going on, and like we didn't know who was going on. It was so they had to redub her voice, and then but anyway, and there's this great sex scene, like the 90s, with the music on a moving train, and oh God, yes. It's famous. One of the stuntmen, I see him at Comic Cons, and he always brings it up about, because he had to like belay out of a helicopter onto a moving train. He was like supposed to be me, kind of, and it was such a piece of trash.
I'm watching it later. I'm gonna watch it. Best acting advice you've received and who gave it to you?
Best acting advice?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you said?
Yep.
Well, let me think about this. So, well, there was one, it was acting as far as performance, and one was like career advice. The career advice was the first time is when I came back to LA, to kind of go, okay, I'm going to be a, film or whatever actress here. I'm going to try in Hollywood. And like I said, I don't know anyone, neither did my father, but he did. His office gal went to the same church as Carl Malden. It was like a Bosnian church down in or somewhere, you know what I mean? It was, so somehow I got a breakfast meeting with Carl Malden. I mean, the Carl Malden from, the movies, and anyway, from Streetcar Named Desire and all that, and everything. So we go to the Beverly Hills Hotel to have breakfast, brunch, and the first question he asks me, he says, okay, I just need to know, do you see yourself as I was 26, a young leading lady or a young character actress? And I was like, oh, And I thought for a few seconds, and I was just like, I'm a young character actress. And he goes, okay, that's good to know, good to decide, because that means that you have a career that can last your whole life. If you said young lady, you have, depending on how you age, 10 to 15 years. So, and I remember just like, wow, it's an interesting thing. And then, the acting advice was it was interesting in England. The teacher, she was just talking about how belief and, what actors do to kind of believe. And she said, children don't have to believe that there's a monster in the closet. There just is.
Yeah.
There just is that incredible sense of belief that you get to. So there you go. There's my little piece of advice there.
That's great advice. So something I like to ask everyone to end is, have you ever had an experience you would consider supernatural or paranormal, or an event you can't explain?
No, you know what? I'm not superstitious. I don't believe in, the zodiac and and all of those sort of things. So
Weird coincidence, maybe?
well, coincidence, yeah, there's always kind of this like weird coincidences that'll happen. I mean, I think I just kind of think about, you never hear a word and somebody explains that word to you, and then all of a sudden you hear it constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually think there's something, it's just awareness that things are around you all the time. And then when you're ready to be aware of it, but there's no like super being up there with the puppet strings doing that. That's just me. Yeah.
Well, Jenette, just to put a bow on this, is there anything coming up that you can share, or you can tell us a
Um,
little bit about your business if you want to? If that's something you want to
oh
plug.
yeah, that's probably, yeah, because I'm still in this place where I'm kind of wondering, am I going to do theater, going to do film? I did a short film that's on the festival circuit right now. But yeah, no, my business. I have it's a bra fitting boutique. sell women's undergarments and swimwear, which I import from Europe.
Wow.
And it's a brick and mortar, and we have 3 locations in Los Angeles and 2 in Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow.
And it is and really quite a valuable profession that was lost, where, like, the tailor, you go in and you speak with somebody who knows what they're doing, and they select things, and we don't sell online because the whole idea is about fit and feel and you. So we have a website where you can see what we do, but you have to come make a trip to LA or Atlanta, for us to get,
Yeah.
everything ready. And then it's a really wonderful place for women of all ages to talk to other women and do that. And so it's been 15 years. And so I hope that, that any of your listeners, if they're in the 2 cities, that they come by or find us. It's Jenette Bras. Very simple. That's what
Yeah, that's easy to
JenetteBras.com.
remember.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to remember. Yeah, I got all the misspellings of my name, so if you put an A in there, it'll still come up. But yeah. No, and I don't work in the stores anymore. I'm actually going on sabbatical. I have an incredible team, managers and buyers, and I mean, I do the marketing, like the
Hmm.
voice, and the branding is on me and my partner, my husband, who's an artist. That's all but that I do. But I have a wonderful, wonderful staff that I've hired over the years, and they're wonderful people. So
I have to take my wife to one. We're about 2 hours from Atlanta, so
fantastic.
it's
Yeah.
definitely close enough. Hmm.
Yeah, Atlanta's a great spot. That's where I want my mother's family's from Atlanta, so that's why we opened
Okay.
yeah, and people come in through either in the film industries in both of those cities, because we do a lot of work with the studios, undergarments and things for. I'm always saying, oh yes, that's our, so but yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Jeanette, thank you so much for giving me some of your time. I really appreciate talking to you. Had a good time.
Yeah, me too.
You have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.